Flags! They seem to be everywhere. At baseball games, outside of post offices, there are even flags on the damn moon. And some people, if the internet is to be believed, even dream flags. Dreaming a flag, or the process of interpreting the dream of a flag, is called somnivexillology. This, of course, comes from the Latin roots somnus, meaning sleep, and vexillum, meaning flag or banner. Vexillology is the study of regular, non-dream flags. And so somnivexillology is the study of dream flags. Who calls it somnivexillology? Well, somnivexillologists, of course. And where do they practice? Pretty much exclusively on Reddit. Anyone who has spent any time on Reddit knows that there is a seemingly bottomless pool of extremely weird subreddits. There's a subreddit where people pretend to know each other from a small town without ever naming the town. There's one where people post pictures of mirrors for sale. There's a subreddit where people mull the self-defense advantages of keeping sand in their pockets, which I believe is a reference to a fairly obscure one-off joke from King of the Hill.
Give it! Pocket sand!
And a totally non-participatory subreddit where bots simulate a subreddit. So why should anyone be shocked that there's a community dedicated to dream flags and the dreamers who dream them?
Hi, my name is Ben, and I am a member of Reddit's online somnivexillology subreddit, where we recreate flags that we see in dreams. There are a lot of nerds who are into flags on Reddit, myself being one of them. The aim is just, if you can see a flag in a dream, and if you were able to remember it and then recreate it, you can post it to the subreddit, and you just kind of share this weird thing that you saw in a dream and share it with the rest of the community, and the community gets to see it.
Did you discover the subreddit first, or did you dream a flag and then go on the internet to see if other people were dreaming flags? Like, I just realized it sort of feels like a bit of a chicken and an egg thing, and I'm really curious what your experience was.
I've been on Reddit for maybe too long. I can't remember the first time I went to that subreddit. I never searched it out. It must have just come up in my recommendations, or someone linked to it, like someone else dreamed a flag. And then I was like, oh, this is a really neat niche thing. I don't know how these people do it. They see flags in dreams and they recreate it. And then eventually I saw one in a dream and I made sure to remember it. And then I posted it. And I've done like about a half dozen to a dozen posts on the subreddit over the past couple years.
When you first dreamed a flag and you woke up and you remembered it, were you ecstatic to be able to all of a sudden contribute to this community that you had become aware of?
Yeah, no, I was definitely excited. I mean, I was always, I've never dreamed a flag before. This will never happen. Then I saw one and I was like, well, shoot, well, I guess I can post on that now. So I was, definitely very excited to post this design on it because I could be a part of the community. So it was fun. This one I find really interesting. And so if you'd indulge me, I know that telling people about dreams is kind of a faux pas. No one likes to hear it unless they're in it. But I can tell you the context kind of behind them. Back in college, I had a lot of like African friends, friends from Africa. And so I had a dream, not about a specific friend, but just like a general, like I have a classmate who's a foreign exchange student from a made up African country. And this is the flag of it. You can kind of see the Pan-African colors, the green, the yellow, the red, that are obviously in my brain when I think of what does an African flag look like. Obviously, it's not quite exactly how I remember. In my dream, these two halves weren't cleanly cut. They were kind of like coming in and out of each other and shifting constantly. I don't know how to recreate that. So I was just like, cut it in half. This one is interesting because this fictitious classmate pointed to me where their country was on a map. And then I took a map from Wikipedia and I made a rough edit of where their fake country is. I remember it being a zigzag country to the west of Ethiopia, and it was south of Egypt because they mentioned traveling through the Sinai Peninsula. So I quickly recreated the map in the Wikipedia map thing. So this is their fake country that I dreamed up.
Reddit being Reddit, this is far from the only community dedicated to stuff that bubbles into the subconscious mind during dream states. There's somnolinguistics, where people discuss words and languages and whole linguistic cultures that emerge in dreams. There's somnogastronomy, where people discuss foods and food preparation methods learned from dreams. One recipe was for jeans carbonara, which is sort of like regular carbonara, except instead of bacon, you cut. Hey everybody, Sam Sutherland here in the Dundas Video Kitchen, getting ready to try out a brand new recipe, jeans carbonara. Let's get to it. All right, folks, we got water boiling for the pasta. We've got those delicious pork bellies in the oven. I can smell them right now. We're ready to start mixing in those jeans. So first, you want to get a bowl, a couple eggs, mash those bad boys in there. That's right, you can include the whole eggshell, because that's where a huge amount of the flavor comes from. People don't know that. Now you're ready to start mixing in those jeans. Now, I personally love the taste of a distressed pre-cut jean. You can see I've already cut some strips in here, but this is kind of what you're looking for, something that's not gonna really choke you too bad, or your dog if he gets into it. Oh boy, Fido, I know he smells this right now. You wanna put those in with the eggs, start whisking those bad boys up. Keep in mind, you can do this with a black jean and dark denim, but you get a little bit of a gamier flavor the darker the denim. That's why I go with these light boys. So I'm mixing them up, getting ready. Smells good. The only thing you're gonna wanna make sure is that you
wake up before you eat this.
Even these dream message boards seem more sensible, precisely because they're so incomprehensible and dreamlike. Somnivexillology feels so straight. Like, who has a dream of something as visually clean and coherent as a flag? If we take somnivexillologists at their word, and why shouldn't we? Has a somnivexillologist ever lied to you? It's not like they're sitting down to design these things from scratch. They appear fully formed in all their weirdness in the slumbering minds of the dreamers of flags. And this, too, may have special meaning.
Dreaming about a flag is a sign of hope, faith, and brighter times ahead. Read Psalm 121 for divine help and protection.
Not all of us may buy into this Christian evangelical interpretation, of course. Well, fear not. The internet abounds with sundry other dream interpreters who are willing to tug at the loose threads of these dream flags.
I'm Laurie Quinn Lowenberg. I'm a professional dream analyst, and I have been analyzing the dreaming mind for 30 years, a really long time. So Carl Jung, he was a protege of Freud. And Freud did bring the idea of dream analysis to the West. And Jung was his protege. Freud felt that dreams were all about repressed emotions and memories, and ultimately everything came down to your genitals.
The classics. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Everything in your dream was either a vagina or a penis in some form. But Jung brought about the idea, which I subscribe to because it makes a lot of sense, and I've seen it very applicable in my dream analysis work, that everything in the dream is some aspect of the dreamer or the dreamer's life. So your dreams are really all about you or something that directly affects you.
That's so interesting. Now, would you be willing, because, specifically there's this subreddit called Somnivexillology. And so some people have posted, historically on this Reddit, flags that they have dreamt before. But here's one, this hammer and sickle and an egg and eggs must die. Does this conjure anything? So someone clearly, the context here is this flag was flown at a protest at their university in their dreams.
Okay, so just based on dream symbology, eggs would symbolize the beginning of something, some sort of growth that's beginning in the dreamer's life. In this flag, the symbols of communism are killing the productivity. So this dreamer would need to ask themselves, what in my life was just getting started that now has been squashed by someone with, of course, it depends on your perspective of communism, that has been squashed by what I believe are communistic things.
I would love to know how you interpret this Kermit Hollandaise flag.
All right, so and it's green, so we got the green frog on a green flag, and Hollandaise. Okay. What I would do if this person were sitting with me, and I would ask them, what comes to mind when you think of hollandaise sauce? Okay, it could be a particular, maybe it was something their grandmother made, so that is where we would go. And then frogs And Kermit in particular, and they described it as a Muppet, right, in the context.
I believe they did in the comments. I believe that they said it was specifically.
I'm
they're just wondering
guessing
if it was
it's
a Muppet Run
a
Country.
Muppet Run
Yeah.
Country.
A Muppet Run Country. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So they didn't say Kermit the Frog. They said Muppet. So that's the difference, and that's important. So that
Yeah.
would most likely be about a puppet, someone that is manipulated by someone else, something that is not real. So there may be some kind of manipulation going on in this person's life that their subconscious is bringing to their attention. And they also said the words Muppet Run Country. So my guess is that it could be that their subconscious is beginning to think about someone in their life that's trying to control them, run them, and manipulate them. I need to go to this Reddit.
You definitely do.
This is funny.
Forget evangelism or Young. Why flags? There's something so antiquated about the whole thing. What drives interest in flags specifically? Maybe it makes sense to defer to a regular vexillologist.
I'm Ted Kay. I'm the secretary of the North American Vexillological Association, the largest flag studies organization in the world, and I'm the compiler of the flag design guidebook, Good Flag, Bad Flag. Well, this is an avocation. Very few people get paid to do flags unless they're in the business of making flags. The fundamental purpose of a flag is signaling at a distance. It has to be recognizable when it's flapping on a flagpole way up high, and it needs to be memorable. You need to be able to remember what it represents and know that that's the flag of X. So that those two ideas of discernibility and recollectability, can you make it out and can you remember what it represents, are the fundamental tests of flag design. And many designs fail in that process. And I realized that we had a huge amount of poor flag design out there, but nobody had really helped the world understand flag design. There have been many people in our area who had written treatises on flag design, but they were not targeted at the general public. They just didn't think about the marketing of the idea. So my contribution was to take all of those people's thoughts, 20 people who know more than I do about flag design, and I distilled their wisdom and summarized it with 5 basic principles of flag design, and used that concept to illustrate flags that followed principles and didn't follow the principles. We haven't heard of someone saying this design came to me in a dream, or I dreamed about this as part of their design submission. But roughly half of city flag redesign efforts involve some kind of public competition where there might be dozens or hundreds or even thousands of submissions from the public. And even the other half of design efforts, which usually rely on a single or a designer or some small group of designers to come up with a design, both those groups may well have their creativity expressed in their sleeping state, in their dreaming state.
Well, I mean, you're right, but it seems possible. You're right. The odds are it could have happened.
The dreaming brain taps into our creativity just as the waking brain does. And if an idea comes to you when you're awake, or an idea comes to you when you're asleep, it's still coming from your own font of creativity. I think about the Beatles song Yesterday, the tune of which came to Paul McCartney in a dream. He woke up, he noted it down, and he asked his fellow Beatles and others, is this a song you know? Or did I just make this up in my dream? So Yesterday came to Paul McCartney in a dream. And designs that come of flags that come to people in dreams are just as valid expressions of their creativity as designs that come from their waking state.
Sure, nice flags are nice, and ugly flags are generally pretty ugly, but what do flags mean? I can look at the Canadian flag and know that the red stripes represent the oceans at Canada's borders, and the big maple leaf represents all of the maple stuff between them. But what is the benefit of a well-designed flag? And how do those flags connote deeper meanings?
A well-designed flag could be seen as an indicator of how a city considers all of its design systems, its public transit, its parks, its signage. It might seem frivolous, but it's not. I've seen firsthand what a good city flag can do in the case of Chicago. The marriage of good design and civic pride is something that we need in all places. The best part about municipal flags is that we own them. They are an open source, publicly owned design language of the community. When they are done well, they are remixable, adaptable, and they are powerful. We could control the branding and graphical imagery of our cities with a good flag, but instead, by having bad flags we don't use, we cede that territory to sports teams and chambers of commerce and tourism boards. Sports teams can leave and break our hearts, and besides, some of us don't really care about sports. And tourism campaigns can just be cheesy. But a great city flag is something that represents a city to its people and its people to the world at large. And when that flag is a beautiful thing, that connection is a beautiful thing. So maybe all the city flags can be as inspiring as Hong Kong or Portland or Trondheim. And we can do away with all the bad flags like San Francisco, Milwaukee, Cedar Rapids. And finally, when we're all done, we can do something about Pocatello, Idaho, considered by the North American Vexillological Association as the worst city flag in North America.
On the internet, these flags aren't always about togetherness and coming together. In fact, they can connote something else entirely, a sense of almost radical individuality. Like, these are the flags that are so personal that they literally emerge from the subconscious, slumbering minds of the designers that you'll find on the Somnivexiology subreddit. Here's the flag for Saarland. Here's the flag for CRA. And here's one for the Irish Republic of Northern California, which violates a few of Ted K's tips for clean, crisp flag design. Saarland, CRA, and the Irish Republic of Northern California all have one thing in common. They don't exist. At least, not yet. But they may aspire to existence, and in this respect, they resemble another niche online parapolitical idea, micronations. What are micronations? Well, we did a whole episode of Extremely Online about it, so I won't get too deep into the weeds, even though you guys didn't watch that show. Essentially, they are self-proclaimed sovereign states, which aren't officially recognized by actual sovereign states.
There's a lot of different levels of seriousness in the micronational realm. We're not all the same.
The tongue-in-cheek parody kind of micronations, like Slovovia, political experiments, religious foundations. There are some out there that are trying to con people or trying to make some money off of it. There's people out there who are using the micronation as a platform, as a way to get a message across. Ambulatory Free States of Obsidia, for example, is one that has a brilliant concept behind it. It's a feminist micronation. Their land claim being a piece of rock, and it's this big, and they carry it around in a briefcase. It's ambulatory. I find that's a really interesting one, really fun.
Is that it?
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
So Obsidia is a chunk of obsidian rock that was found by an ex-lover of mine. We ended on bad terms, so I stole it, and our nation can move around, and it can be picked up and taken places. You don't have to be in the nation to participate in the nationhood. Our main principle is to institutionalize femme or female leadership. It became like this kind of outlet where I could become a different person that was comfortable making these things like the main focus of my life. And then everyday me could take a break from it. It was like mentally draining. So instead I just like made this kind of character for my politics, I guess. I think that through humor, people will listen to you that wouldn't typically like be interested in hearing about that kind of thing.
Micronations may seem kind of silly or hard to take seriously. Like, it's fun, I guess, to want to design your own civic constitution. It's an exercise in thinking through the rights of citizenship and belonging. But sometimes the right to belong is more than just an exercise. Sometimes it's a real, cultural, political project with life or death stakes. And this sort of project can benefit from its own invented sets of signs and symbols. Take the pride flag. We take it for granted now, but the rainbow flag has spawned countless revisions and variations. In the mid-70s, a Bay Area designer named Gilbert Baker was asked by Harvey Milk to design a symbol for gay liberation to be flown in the 1978 Gay Freedom Day Parade in San Francisco. Baker's original design featured 8 colors, including hot pink, which was eventually dropped due to hot pink fabric shortages. The rainbow was rich with meaning. Some compared it to the Brotherhood flag introduced in the 1930s as a symbol of universal fraternity and sure, sorority. Others tied it to the rainbow and paisley textures of the hippie movement and to Judy Garland's Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It seemed broad and all-inclusive.
Was it 2018 you came up and created the Progress Pride flag, and it's really the first redesign of the flag, since Gilbert Baker's.
I knew what the message was of these other flags and what they were doing. And so I thought, what can I do aesthetically to add to or emphasize that messaging? And so that's what kind of jump-started the idea of let's rearrange the elements a little bit and see if we can create something. And when I landed on the chevron shape, which was actually the first one that I made. Often the way that I do things is I'll make the one that is the one, and then I'll make like 15 other versions of it, and then I'll go, I don't like any of these, and then go back to the very first one again and be like, that was the one all along. The idea of an arrow, a chevron that is pointing a direction away from where you're at is kind of a it's what inspired the name of Progress, because it insinuates movement, and movement means change and stuff like that. So the chevron kind of instantly added this idea of progress and the need for progress, and so. Though I was tinkering with the design to create what I did, the messaging kind of flowed out of it at the same time as it was being made.
The Progress Pride flag is a great example of something that is basically made up, but which nonetheless comes to be accepted as real, to represent a real social political movement, whether intuitively because it is a coherent, well-designed flag, or because of its place in the culture, we have to accept its meaning. In that sense, it's no different than national flags. Not to sound like John Lennon circa Imagine, or someone who has smoked weed for the very first time, but nations are, practically speaking, made up. Their borders are arbitrations of geography and history, and even differences in language and culture can seem so minimal as to be superficial. If nations are real, then they're about as real as the flags they represent. They're real because we enter into a contract where we agree that they're real and conduct ourselves accordingly. And yes, I have read Sapiens. Which brings us back to dream flags. Somnivexillology encapsulates something that this show and the World Wide Web itself keeps coming back to. The idea of simply memeing something into existence. Do these flags, or the teeny tiny micronations that they represent, exist? No, well, they do now. Kind of. Through sheer will, these symbols of pride or identity, or whole charters enshrined in the constitutional rights and protections of that pride and identity, can be pretty much brought into existence. Like we're talking about New Athens and CRA in the Irish Republic of Northern California. Doesn't that make them real in a sense? I mean, even a flag as iconic and recognizable as the American flag, perpetually at half-mast, represents an idea of unity that has always been aspirational more than a reflection of the actual condition of unity. It is the dream of a thing that those who believe in it are trying, day by day, to will into existence. It's not a flag so much as the dream of a flag. So, and okay, I swear I am not stoned, aren't all flags flags of dreams? They are the attempt to manifest an idea or an ideal or a whole concept, an effort to bring it into the real world. Even the notion of somnivexillology, a totally made-up word, basically only exists on Reddit. Until now, anyway.